So, back again with doing more of this. Um, because I've been kind of like it, like in doing this. And I just think that it's a good fun time to have, and plus um, fairly easy to do. It's not very time consuming, so and I enjoy it. So why not? Even if it doesn't get engagement, doesn't matter, right? It is like I said. I think it was in the first one. Um, the point is to get engagement, right? It's not to share. Um, I'm always appreciative of people who come across and interact and can um, and can that like. Um, but I just it's I'm not a raconteur, right? It's not my job to tell stories. Um, it's not that I want to to go around and um, drill my opinions into people forcibly. It's just the need to share, right? The will to share more than anything, more than the need, just the will. 'Cause I understand, right? The world doesn't have need for my opinions, right? It doesn't uh it doesn't change if I'm in it or not. At at large, um, of course, in a more local sense, it does, but that's not the point. Point being, I wanted to talk about something um I briefly mentioned. I think it was on the first one. Um, just the idea of feeling unlovable. Um, and I feel like this is something that is um, a plague on modern, especially men, modern men. And it is very serious, right? Because no one is, right? Unless you're a complete unhinged psychopath, you're not unlovable, right? Unless you're like some sort of narcissistic, psychopathic, unhinged goofball, you're lovable, right? Somebody, sometime out there will love you, and maybe you have to wait for it. Maybe you'll find your love when you're 50 or 60 or whatever. I have people very close in my personal life that only found love in their 50s, right? Um, but and that's okay, you know. Um, but you will never be unlovable, right? It doesn't matter whether it works out in the end or not. You won't be unlovable. Somebody sometime out there is going to love you for whatever you're worth. Um, and oh, I hear Drake outside. And I think that it's important to talk about this because it is something that I myself learned to deal with. It's the idea of coming to terms with the fact that you are lovable, right? Somebody can, in fact, love you, which you know, sometimes after so much time just the thinking that that reality just can't be ever possibly, sometimes it doesn't feel real, but um that's the truth, that it's the idea that you are in fact lovable. But I think to some extent um it is an easy hole to fall into, right? um it's the idea that I am me, and me being me can't be loved. I've done so much shit. I've wronged so much, done so much bad in the world, and hurt so many people, and um, just how can somebody love me, right? Um, and somebody will, despite everything, so long, and I think this is the important condition to establish. So long as from those wrongs, from those mistakes, from those painful moments, so long as you extract good from it, right? You may have hurt people, you may have suffered a lot in life, and been unfairly thrust into some fucked up situations. that could have all been right. But so long as you can take something good out of it, so long as you can, despite all of it, right, find some semblance of good and uh, and act with compassion and empathy despite all of it, I think somebody out there is gonna love you, right? So long as you remain um, warm to humanity, it will happen. Um, but I also think that it's important to talk about um, something that is a very, it's a very big misconception that we have nowadays in modern dating. It's the idea that a relationship's gonna fix you. No, a relationship is not going to do that. You can't go, and this is usually a recipe for failure. You can't go into a relationship expecting that it will make you a man, or it will make you a better person, or that it will fix all your problems. You're just gonna find more, you know? You're not, if you, like, straight out the gate, you're going into a relationship uncomfortable with being alone in your own head, you will end up worse than you started, right? And that, I feel like this is something that is very important to talk about also, is to be to be good in relationships, to be a halfway decent man. um, I feel like you need to be comfortable alone, right? Because like, I feel like this is the caveat in all this. Um, you can't go looking for somebody to to help you share your burdens when you can't share those burdens with yourself, right? When you can't stand to be alone in a dark room with no distraction and think about it. When you can't do that comfortably, um, I don't think if that's the case, you should be going into a relationship in the slightest, like, no matter what kind of relationship it is, right? Um, Because if you can't be comfortable with yourself, do you expect to be with someone else? Look, I'm not saying that relationships can't be or can't be a great motivator for change. They can. I've talked about it. Um, but they aren't cures, right? They're vitamins. Relationships are vitamins, not cure-alls. It's not snake poison, right? Um, they're not going to fix everything in your life. You're not gonna get a girl and suddenly everything in your life is just gonna be set right. That's not it. If you're going into a relationship expecting that, I'm sorry, you are actually 8, right? It's extremely childish to believe that. Um, but I think it is important to think about how, even though they aren't cure-alls, relationships aren't this magic pill that's gonna fix your life. They do set you on the right track, right? Um, it's important that you can be alone in your own head, um, and be comfortable with yourself, right? Because if you aren't comfortable with yourself, if you aren't sure of the person you are, you won't be sure of what another person is, right? Um, I feel like it's as simple as putting your affairs in order first, and then trying to to put in others. Um, and it's the violation of this rule is something that sort of goes sort of unspoken in modern society, right? We don't talk about it much, but it happens. It happens on a massive scale, and we don't tend to look at it. And I hesitate to say massive scale, right? Because of course there are great relationships out there, right? There are people, dime a dozen rather, um, that you know have a great relationship between them, each other, and that actually love each other. And I feel like in terms of love, society is sort of a spectrum now. That more leaning towards one side of the spectrum, but a spectrum nonetheless. But you know, I just I think that um, in a sort of fucked up way, there are just more meaningless relations than meaningful, right? Um, and you know, this has a lot to do with social media and um, the way it has totally fucked up our idea of meaningful relations. Um, but it is true. Like if you go online, um, and you spend even the tiniest bit of time online, right? You'll start running into people that talk about body count this and and just putting gigantic emphasis on relations and sex and uh, you know they just start putting a lot of importance on what's transient, right? On what goes away. Um, and worse than that, they do it with the greatest the greatest ease, right? They make it all so casual. They make um, idiocy, right, into the most casual thing. Um, and it's deeply fascinating to me. Well, fascinating on one hand, disturbing on the other. Um, because and I feel like this is important to remember. Those are the fathers of tomorrow, right? Those are um, the brothers, right? They're gonna be the next adults, and um, it's worrying to see and to think about how those people will be tomorrow's adults, and they struggle to form relations and to have values, and to more important than having values, they struggle to maintain them, right? Because I feel like this is also a big problem in modern society is that we change, and that's good. Like I said, I don't know in which episode of this whole thing. Change is good. It's great. We should do it. But there's, you know, it's like food or drugs or anything that can be harm to yourself in excess, right? If you change too much, that tends to go wrong, right? Um, and I feel like when it comes to holding values and uh, being virtuous in the slightest amount, we tend to not hold values for very long, and this makes me question. Um, and that it's still something that I've struggled to find a concrete answer for. Um, but if you have a value, right, and you change that, right? Let's say that you believe that women should be able to read, right? That you believe in education. You believe that for 4 years, let's say, right? And then all of a sudden, something happens and you change, and all of a sudden you believe that women belong in the kitchen. Did you have that value? Did you ever have the opinion that you know women should be able to have an education, be able to read? Were you virtuous in that sense? Did you hold that that value, or was it momentary, transient? You know, um, and if so, was it really a value? Does it constitute a fair, honest expression of the person you are? If you change it, I don't know. It's something that that's been in my mind, and I've just struggled to find a concrete answer for it. Let me just kill these. And I'm proposing this question um, because we tend to see this a lot nowadays with guys, right? And you might think it's not related, like in the slightest bit, but it is. Um, and I think it's important to explain how it is related. Um, let's say that a guy does his best to be a good good person, to have values, to take care of themselves, and to be respectful to women and to people. You know, try and be as close to good as he can get. Um, and it doesn't work for him, right? The good man doesn't work. Which it happens. Yeah, people are starting to care for the wrong things. It happens. It's not fair by any means, but it happens. Um, and so he sees that it's not working. You know, being a good person isn't working. So we, being rational beings, you know, he decides to try differently. You know, see what works, and he decides to start acting like a fucking asshole, like being a complete sleazebag, complete idiot, and acting in the worst ways possible. Um, and just focusing on the wrong things and giving value to the wrong things, and it works. It works, and he finally gets with somebody, and he finally um, manages a relationship, you know, although meaningless. Um, but what does that say about us, right? Did he did he hold? Was he ever a good man? If he changed, you know, was he ever virtuous? If he was open to, you know, changing the person he is so drastically and becoming an asshole? I don't know. Um, that to say that, you know, did all this just to say that we should change, yeah, but in a tempered way, right? In a measured way. Um, because we should change, right? We should take from the world and we should, um, you know, alter ourselves, but in positive ways. We should put that limitation. Because it's not always that we change for ill, right? It happens a lot that we change for the worse, and it's a normal part of society. But when it becomes purposeful, when it becomes something that is done out out of your own volition, um, it's wrong. I mean, at least in my head, it is. Um, you know, when you change out of your own volition for worse, um, no, I don't know how to put it really, but it's um, on one hand fascinates me again, but I also find it disturbing. But yeah, I'll leave it here because 15 minutes passed and I am still rambling. But yeah, I just wanted to talk more about that, and I will leave it here and pick back up some other time. So goodbye.